Running 100 miles seems impossible, and maybe even kind of crazy. And it is, but we believe in big crazy dreams. That's why we ran 100 miles. It was such a life-changing experience for us, we decided to devote this podcast to preparing and inspiring you to run your first ultra race.
Are you ready to feel the highest highs and the lowest lows? Are you ready to do what you once thought was impossible? Are you ready for your trail to 100? Thank you for joining us here on Trail to 100, the podcast made to help you finish your first 100-mile race. I'm Jacob Bateman, and joined along with me is my beautiful and lovely wife, Melody.
How's it going?
And today we move on to our fourth pillar, mindset.
Whew.
So this is the pillar that it's a big reason that a big allure and draw to me to get into ultra running.
I think the mindset aspect of this is a big allure for a lot of people.
Yes. So what is that allure then? Why are we searching for this what are we searching for in our first 100-mile race?
Well, I think it's just human nature to want to challenge ourselves and to grow and to learn. And I think that's a big reason a lot of people do ultras, is because it's big, it's scary, it's intimidating, it's challenging, and we're excited about, this unknown territory, and what are we from this and how are we going to grow?
Yeah, it's pushing yourself that you haven't been pushed before. I mean, it's in a world where a lot of things are really, really soft. This is a very hard thing.
I like how you put that. I do think we live in a soft world, and I wonder if there's like this primal something inside of us that I feel that personally, this primal something inside of us that just craves rough and rooty and craves being in nature and kind of going back to maybe our primitive roots, which that's a big reason for me for running ultras.
For all the men out there, it makes me feel like a man.
Yeah.
When you're climbing up a mountain, 60 miles in and dirty and sweaty and just pushing yourself,
Yeah.
getting uncomfortable, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been a good 4 or 5 years. I don't even know what we're on of ultra running. And
we're here to say that we're retiring.
Yes, exactly. And so, okay, so what kind of set then does it take to get you across the finish line of a 100-mile race?
I feel like you need an optimistic / positive mindset. I feel like you need a disciplined mindset. I feel like you need a growth mindset, because you're going to run into obstacles in your training and on race day. And I think you need a mindset of how can I learn and grow from this when those obstacles arise.
Yes, you hit it right on the money, Melody, with the growth mindset. Growth, or you can also call it a problem-solving mindset.
Yeah.
We need to, when something bad happens, you have to be able to, rather than pretend it's not there,
Or get upset that it's there.
Yeah, or get upset that this happened. You need to instead acknowledge it, accept it, and then move forward from there.
And I actually want to backpedal a little bit. I think it's okay to get upset. Get upset and feel your feelings, but don't let that stop you from getting around the obstacle.
Yeah, and this happens both in training and on race day.
And
Yes.
as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, this is really deep.
So no one is, as we stay focused here on the 100-mile distance, like no one is going to have a perfect training plan.
Perfect race. If someone who's listening has had a perfect 100-mile race, like everything went perfect, message us because I want to hear about it.
where everything went according to plan. Now, you can create a great plan and it will probably help prevent a lot of things.
Sure.
And
That's why we do this podcast,
it will,
right?
yeah, and it will minimize the problems, but there's still going to be a problem that you didn't see coming because you're not out there on your training runs doing 100 miles every weekend. You can't, it's nearly impossible to mimic a 100-mile race because your body just can't take it, too consistently. So you get maybe 1 or 2 a year. If you're crazy, you do 5 or 6, or really
Or you're like
crazy.
Davy Crockett and you run one every weekend, but
Yeah. And
that's the exception, not the rule.
yeah, so it's really, you have to go into an ultra the mindset of, okay, problems are going to arise, but when they do, I'm going to choose to work my way around them. And that is why I'm doing it, because I want to get better at this.
Yes, mentally prepare yourself for when obstacles arise. Learn
And
how to regulate yourself emotionally.
yeah, and you talk about how a lot of this stuff applies to real life. Like, I think that's the whole point of ultra running. We're not just doing it to get super physically fit.
I mean, that's a
Yeah,
little part.
that's a part of our motivation, but I think we're doing this to have lessons and takeaways that can help us through our everyday
I mean,
life.
to grow. Like that's
Yes.
just what keeps coming to mind is we do this so we can grow as human beings.
So, how has ultra running helped you grow, Mel?
Really good question. I feel like we use ultra running analogies in our life every single day. I feel like when things get hard, we always use the analogy of let's just get to the next aid station. Stop focusing on crossing the finish line because this is really big and overwhelming. Let's be honest, we're scared to be parents, right? We're like, we have no idea what we're doing. I'm starting to get a little bit emotional here. I think it's because I'm pregnant. Everything to cry right now. But we're scared to be parents, and looking at that finish line of having a baby here and taking care of it, that seems really overwhelming, right? So we remind each other, like, let's just focus on the next aid station right now. We got to build a baby registry. We got to nurture our relationship so our baby comes in the world on a strong foundation. We need to prepare the house, start getting nursery, one step at a time instead of looking at the big picture. I think that's something that has helped me in a lot of places in life where this thing seems really big and overwhelming. I feel like it's also that I can do anything that I set my mind to. If something's hard, we know that if we just keep moving, we'll get there. Huge thing that I've taken away from ultra running is this: the pain doesn't last forever. In life, when I'm in a rough spot, things seem really hard, I always know that there's going to be an end to it and I'm going to feel better later. And I just have to push through this until I get my second wind. And that has pulled me through so many situations in my life.
Yeah, those are really good points, and I think I've had very similar takeaways as you. The pain comes in waves. That's what I like to say. It comes in waves. It's gonna really suck for a time, but if you can just push through that sucky part, it's better.
Oh, yeah. And it's
And
going to be worth it. And you're going to be glad that you pushed.
yeah, yes, you are. It's so along with that, though, with ultra running, everyone talks about what is your why.
Yeah. We've
So
talked about that a lot on our
yeah,
podcast.
what is your why? Everyone's like, you gotta make sure you have a why, because if you don't have a why, you're not gonna even make it through your training process.
Absolutely.
So, what does that constitute? What is your why?
What does that mean?
Yeah,
Well, I feel like your why is your motivation. What is your motivation for doing this? And we could talk a little bit more about motivation. And is your motivation so you can tell everybody you ran a 100-mile race, or so you can have a cool belt buckle? Or because
Partly.
partly we let's not lie, like everybody wants a cool belt buckle.
Yeah.
Everyone who's cool, anyways, just kidding. But I'm not kidding. Anyways, if that is your motivation, that's not going to pull you across the finish line of a 100-mile race. That might pull you across the finish line of a 5K, maybe even a marathon. But past that, you need a lot more push to get through the pain that you're going to experience.
Yeah, and one thing that I've heard is having a why both for yourself and outside of yourself, because it's easy to quit. It can be easy to quit on yourself, but it's really hard to quit on other people.
I love that. I like to say that you need to have a why bigger than yourself.
So we talk about doing it for ourselves and for others. I guess I'll give you an example where those two things can line up. For my first 100-mile race, a big why for why I was doing it was I was wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't a quitter. I had some previous experiences in my life where I felt like I had kind of just quit and rolled over, and I regretted those experiences. And so I was fighting that demon, and I was using my 100-mile race to try to fight that demon. Now things got really hard, and during the 100-mile race, and I wanted to roll over and quit, and I was considering that. And then I had a friend text me. We've told this story before, and he talked about doing this for my. Didn't have any kids at the time. We have our first on the way right now. But he talked about being able to tell my kids that I've done this and being able to support them with this story to help encourage them in their life so that they can be able to go chase their dream and feel like they can do hard things as well.
Isn't it interesting how much our posterity came up during our first 100-mile
Yeah.
training? And this was like we were still newly married. We weren't thinking about having kids anytime soon. We knew that we wanted kids. I feel like that was a big reason for me too. We always talked about doing this for our kids and teaching them that they can do anything that they set their mind to.
And so here's how that worked hand in hand is I don't want my kids to quit on things. On that
Unless it's drugs.
yeah, on that sports team when things are getting hard, and they're the smallest kid on the football team and they feel like they're getting beat up every day. Like,
Aw,
I want my kid to be able to push through and
persevere.
persevere and find a way to tough that season out still and make the best of it. And so if I don't have similar stories to tell them about where I persevered and it came out that way, then why would they ever do that?
Well, I feel like our kids learn best by example.
Yeah.
I was always taught that your kids are basically going to become you. And so I feel like by working on myself, and I think this is what you're saying with like bringing the two together, like you're doing it for yourself and you're also doing it for something bigger than yourself. But I think about improving myself and becoming my best self so I can be a good wife, so I can be a good mother one day, so I can be a good example to my kids, so I can be a good example to the people around me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, it comes together right there. That's what I was getting to is, yeah, that the two, I was doing it for myself as well as for those that I love around
Doing
me.
it for yourself, for those that you love. Because
Well, works both ways.
right,
How can
I
I
feel like
help
it's like,
somebody if I feel like crap about myself?
right, it's like the whole like oxygen on a
Yeah.
plane analogy. You put yours on first so
Yeah.
you can help
You
others put theirs on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying about it just works both ways. Like, so if you're struggling to find your why, I would just think about what
What's
do
important to
yeah,
you?
what's important to you? What are you trying to overcome, and how can ultra running line up with that? because I guarantee you it probably can line up with almost anything.
And I do have to throw out, like, you don't have to run 100 miles to grow.
No,
This is just
an
this is
outlet for it.
yeah, this are discomfort of choice, also because we really enjoy it. I feel like you can learn these lessons
Yeah.
in lots of areas of life.
Like I got a friend who's in dental school right now, and he inspires me because he went for dental school, and he's doing great at it, and he's studying like crazy. He's just barely had his second kid. He's out, in a different state, part of the country.
Anyone
There's
who gets their doctorate, kudos to
Yeah.
you.
And he's holding a family together still. Yeah, I'm sure it's hard. I'm sure it's trying and pressing, but that motivates me when I talk to him and hear how he's doing and what he's doing. And I see that as the equivalent, if not greater, than running 100-mile training for and running 100-mile race. And because he tells me all the time, he's like, dude, you're freaking awesome. That's awesome. You're inspiring me. Way to get out there and do these races. And I'm just like thinking the same thing back at him. I'm like, yeah, you're not running 100 miles, but you are
You're
exerting
running
that
100
same
miles in a different way.
yeah, you're exerting that same effort forward. So it can be done in multiple ways, but yeah, it's about that positive, disciplined growth mindset. I think you had those are three great points that you shared for this. So, is there much of a difference between discipline and motivation?
Yeah, for sure. This is what I would say. I feel like motivation is what we've been talking about. Motivation is our why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And discipline is exerting willpower to do something that you don't really want to do, like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to run when you don't want to. Discipline is for when your motivation runs out. Motivation doesn't require as much willpower because you're motivated, right? Everyone's like, oh, what do I do when I don't have motivation? Discipline is when the motivation is out. And that's when you make yourself do it even though you don't want to.
So you can start to make yourself do it even though you don't want to at first because you still have that
I feel
motivation.
like there's it's your why,
Yeah.
right? Like, you always gotta remember your why.
But there's always going to come a point where the actual doing it, you're debating if it's worth it because it's that hard. And the motivation is going, and you know what your why is, but you're still debating in your head, is this really worth it?
You're not gonna debate it if you're committed. If you've committed to running a 100-mile race, you're just gonna realize this sucks, but I decided that this is what I'm gonna do, so you're just gonna get out and do it.
Right, it takes commitment.
Mhm.
Now I will throw in this though, because there's going to be a lot of obstacles in your training as you go for this goal, and for many people it's years to reach this goal. Some people are able to do it within a year. Other people have to overcome a little bit
But
more.
even the people who do it in a
Or
year, they probably have been training physically for years and years in another sport or
some
mentally, you know what I mean? Some.
we've
Yeah.
we've talked to some people. Look at Michael Davis, former guest of our
Yeah.
podcast, who
No, true.
wasn't wasn't really into fitness at all and ran 100 miles a year after he started running.
True.
And okay, so you recommended the book to me, Atomic Habits.
Everybody read it now.
Yeah,
Pause this, go to Amazon, order it.
it was a really great book. And the author, James Clear, he talks about when you're looking to get into a habit, because we're looking to get into the habit of running every day, working out every day, stretching, getting your strength training in, eating right, getting the needed sleep that you need. You have to institute those habits into your life in order to get that stuff in. And so he talks about like creating systems and getting rid of the deterrents or the things that make it harder to do that thing for the day. So, like what I'm trying to say here is yes, ultimately it is discipline, but discipline, I know this sounds like a little ironic, but I do believe discipline like runs out a little bit.
I feel like willpower runs out.
Yeah,
I
the
think
willpower, but
yeah,
willpower to be disciplined.
yeah.
Y-
I think I know what you're saying. If it becomes a habit, it doesn't cost willpower
Yeah.
anymore. It just
Yes.
becomes second nature to you.
So the goal is to get to the point where your training becomes second nature to you.
It becomes a lifestyle,
And
really,
so
for a lot of people.
yeah, and so that's where I think, yeah, I would highly recommend Atomic Habits, where he talks about removing the removing the obstacles that stand in your way on getting your run in the morning. So like example, an obstacle would be your phone. Is it by your bed or is it like across the room? If you have to get out of bed to go get your phone, then you're already physically out of bed in order to, turn the alarm off. And then it's easier to just decide, well, I'm up. I think I'm going to go for my morning run.
I think
Another example, like, yeah, everyone's different, obviously, so that
yeah.
might not work for you,
Well, I'm
but
thinking it's easier for me to pick up my phone and scroll TikTok. Well, what am I saying? I feel like you gave an example of like making it harder, instead of making it
well,
easier. An example would be setting your clothes out in the morning.
so here's where yeah, okay, yeah, I get you. I guess our minds think differently on this. See, for me, because I have to physically get up to turn my alarm off, I'm more likely to go for my run.
Yeah, yeah.
If my phone, meaning my alarm, phone, aka alarm, I'm using it as the same thing here.
Who doesn't? If
If
you're still using an alarm clock, what what are you doing?
Well,
What
I'm
century are you
saying
living in?
this
I'm
because
just kidding.
I'm not saying I'm going to get up to go scroll. I'm saying I'm going to get up to turn my
Yeah,
alarm
yeah,
off.
yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
And so, but if my alarm is right next to my bed, I am not, I am more likely to turn that off, just, roll over, turn it off, roll back over, fall back,
Okay, I see what you're
not go for
saying.
my run.
I feel like another example, and this is the one that James Clear gives in his book, is when you work out in the morning, set your clothes out the night before, because then it's easier in the morning. Now you don't have to dig through your clothes, try to find other clothes, find your socks, find your shoes. You eliminate
Yeah.
that obstacle. It's easier.
Because then when that alarm goes off, you're like, well, I got everything set out. I just have to grab it, throw it on, and get out the door, and I'm ready. I don't have to get any water in my pack. Everything's all ready to go.
I've even heard of some people sleeping in their workout clothes. So
Yes.
you literally just have to throw your covers off and walk out the door.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. So, yeah, eliminating obstacles as much as you can. There's always going to be some sort of obstacle. This is hard. It's why we do it.
Right.
But the little obstacles that you can remove, it's going to really help in your training.
Just like even really, really simple things like putting the junk food in your house on a higher shelf so it's a little
Yeah.
bit harder to get to.
Yeah, or just out of sight,
Yeah.
It's which I think, rolling this back though at its original thing, eliminating obstacles in the end is a growth mindset. It's a problem-solving mindset. You're thinking, okay, stops me from getting in my training, and then how can I make it easier so that I I don't,
You're solving all the problems before you run into them.
yes.
Except not all the problems, because
Yeah,
you're still gonna run into
as many
problems.
as you can. So, anyways, but there always is just come a point in your training and in your race where you're just going to have to decide, you know, do I have it in me? Am I going to just tough this one out? You know? That there's going to come a point where you're miserable and you're tired of running.
But that's why you decide
Yeah.
beforehand that when those moments come up that you're gonna push through.
Yes. Exactly, and that's where you reflect really try to reflect on your why and try to think of why you're doing this and about why you how others are gonna benefit from you doing this as well.
And that's why you get good pacers crew who won't let you quit.
Yes. Yes, that is definitely a must.
I want to say one more thing before we wrap up here. In the episode with Yoga Mike, he gave us the quote, discipline equals freedom. And that completely changed my mindset on discipline because I consider myself kind of a free bird, free spirit. Hate feeling, I hate feeling, I like being my own boss. I love doing coaching, be able to choose my own hours and do what I want when I want. And in my head, discipline meant I'm trapped and I'm constrained to this really tight schedule and it doesn't matter how I feel, I have to do it anyways. And I had a really hard time with the David Goggins mindset. If you go back to our super early episodes, you'll hear me talk about that a lot. And I just didn't understand discipline until Yoga Mike said discipline equals freedom. And all of a sudden it clicked for me. And I realized uh, I feel like a good way to explain this is, let's say you eat a lot of junk food, you never move, you gain a lot of weight. Now you're trapped in a body that won't let you do the things that you want to do. When you are disciplined and you eat fruits and vegetables, you drink water, you get up and work out every day, now you're in a body where you are free to do the things that you want to do. And I'm trying to think of another example. Can you think of another example where discipline equals freedom?
Yeah, I got it. I got an idea right now. So, like, I feel really tired right now,
I see where you're going. Yes.
and I have to edit this podcast after we get done recording. But a part of me just wants to go on the couch, watch TV, play on my phone, and then edit it tonight.
I would
But
say 99% of me wants to do that.
yes, but if I just crack down and just edit this right after we get done recording, then tonight I'm gonna have freedom to do what I want to do.
That is a good point. I thought this is where you're going. This is another example is if you go to bed on time and wake up on time, you're going to feel better and have the energy to do the things that you want to do
Yeah.
during the day versus, oh, I want to stay up till 1 a.m. And then you're tired the next day and you don't get anything done.
Yeah, and if you go to bed on time, you can wake up at the butt crack of dawn and you have the freedom to be out on those trails when hardly anyone else is out there,
Oh,
and just enjoying nature and just being there and being present and having the freedom of pushing yourself and starting the day off on the right note rather than just sleeping in and then rushing to work real fast because you slept in.
if you haven't experienced the freedom of running in the mountains, there's nobody else around, and you feel like you're flying, there's nothing like it. That is the best feeling in the world.
And if you train for 100-mile race and you put in all that hard work and you do your strength training and you get your stretching in and you make your joints strong and you get those long runs in, you now have the freedom to go attempt a 100-mile race when most people who were not disciplined and did not get the training in, and a lot of people sign up for 100-mile races and never show up to the start line because they weren't disciplined enough,
Right.
or they got scared.
You have the choice to show up
Yeah,
and do it, and your risk of injury goes down. And
you give yourself the choice of doing that, thus your freedom then gets expanded because you were disciplined.
something that we both have talked a lot about is, we'll be like, hey, I'm going on a 16-mile run, and we're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll come. A few years ago, we would be like 16 miles, yeah, right. But now I have the freedom to, "Oh, 16-mile run?
to say
Sure, let's
yes.
go do it. Oh, 3 backpacking trip? No
Yes,
problem."
no problem. I'm
Yeah,
down. I have the freedom. I know my body's can handle that. It might be hard still, but I know I can handle it.
exactly.
Now, here's the last thing I want to hit on with mindset because I've learned this, So my second 100, first official one, I had decided to back out at one point because my training I had sustained an injury and my training went nowhere near where I wanted it to be. I decided I wasn't gonna do it. Luckily, one night I was praying and 2 weeks before the race, and God told me, "You can do it and you need to do it."
That was a crazy night.
Yeah, and I rarely have those kinda, like, boom God moments where, like, I feel like Heavenly Father is directly, like, telling me to do something, and so that was a very rare moment for me, but I really felt like he told me, "You need to do it," and I learned a lot there about just showing up, and I
That's
think
powerful.
that is and I ended up running the race, and I finished it much stronger than I was expecting. Just showing up because running 100 miles is scary, and
You've already done it, and
yes,
I have not seen your anxiety this high in a long time. Getting ready for Scout in a few
yes,
weeks.
it's scary, and there's just a lot of power, guys, in just show up and do what you can and accept, like, I'm just gonna do what I can, but I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna give it my all. So don't quit on yourself before you've given yourself the chance to really show up, you know? It's okay to DNF. It's training
No shame in that.
I went into the U100 knowing that, like, I had peaked out at, like, 44-mile weeks, which, yeah, that's alright, but I just, I didn't feel prepared, and I had a constant nagging ankle injury that I was dealing with, and I was like, "You know what? This ankle might flare up during the race, but oh well, I'm just gonna show up. I'm gonna give it my best shot, and if I DNF, I DNF. I'll learn from it. I'll get better. I'll come back next year." You know? And so it's just a lot of power, guys, and when it doesn't go as planned, training or whatever, just just show up. The Ultra Run guys, that's the theme of their show. Just show up, and there's a lot of power in that statement. Give it your all, and when if you've given it your all or not, but give it your all, and then you just go from there.
I feel like that applies to just your workouts every day too. If you're
Yeah,
not feeling good, just show up.
just show up.
Sure.
There's another girl we follow on Instagram. She posts her workouts every day, and she talks a lot about, how every morning she does not want to wait to go on her workout, and then every morning she posts about, "Didn't wanna go on my workout today, but after about mile 1, this run actually ended up turning into a really great run."
And
She's
that's
like,
usually what
yeah,
happens.
yeah, and she talked about, she's like, "I was prepared." She's like, "I just went out in order to just see how I felt after I started running," She's like, "I was prepared that this run might get cut short." But it ended up happening after I got out and I got moving, the whole run ended up happening. And that's what happened to my Ute 100 race. I was prepared for maybe only 50 miles that day, like, because I knew I wasn't 100% trained as how I should be. But I surprised myself. And I think that's the beauty of ultra running. You will surprise yourself, right?
Totally. Ooh, I love that. Do you mind? I know we're getting close to wrapping up here. I feel like this is like when you're on a long run with your friends
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there," but you still
Yeah.
have 10 miles. Anyways, I want to share this story about showing up. It doesn't have anything to do with running actually, but this is when just showing up when that clicked in my head. When my first year of college, I was in a young single adult church congregation and I was super shy, fresh out of high school, and I was super scared to show up. I didn't know anybody, and my dad always taught me showing up, or what was it? Showing up 99%. Oh yeah, my dad always taught me showing up is 99% of success. And so I remembered that, and so I showed up to church and to church activities every single time. I didn't miss one. But I sat in the back, I didn't talk to anybody, and then I left as soon as the activity was over, as soon as church was over. And I did this for a while, and pretty soon people started talking to me, and I started to get more comfortable and ended up with a really, really awesome group of friends. And I was like, that this is awesome. Like, I didn't have to like show up and insert myself and do all these things and talk to everybody. I literally just showed up, sat down, and left. And it resulted in a great group of friends and a really great college experience.
You
And
surprised
I
yourself.
surprised myself. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and that has always stuck with me. So really just putting on your shoes, walking out the front door, that is 99% of your success right there.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I just want to say this to kind of sum this all up is yes, you need to be disciplined. Yes, you have to get training in, but you need to understand, like, because this happens to me when I'm not perfect with my training, it can be a little bit of a toxic mindset of being like, well, geez, now, and that's where you can get down on yourself.
You have to
And
give yourself grace.
yeah, you get down and then you start to not believe yourself. And then you start to think, I should pull out of this race. I can't do it.
Realize you're not gonna be perfect. You're
Yes.
gonna mess up.
So be okay with messing up here and there, but you've got to still consistently show up every day and do something. And so don't let a non-perfect, training plan or training cycle stop you from reaching your goals. Do everything you can to be as prepared as you can, and then just accept, you know what happened happened. I'm still going to go for it. And you just show up, you go for it, and you surprise yourself.
Amen.
So, thank you guys for joining us here on the podcast. Mindset's a big emphasis on this podcast. There's so much to be learned in ultra running about mindset. And so we appreciate you guys tuning in. If this has helped you, share it with somebody you know who could benefit from this, whether they're have ultra running goals or not. This kind of topic is just applied to life in general, and share it with them, and so that will help us keep growing and keep being able to put out this podcast.
If you have a question about anything we talked about on this podcast, or if you have any question related to ultra running that you'd like us to answer on the show, send us your questions. It Send us our questions on our Instagram at trail to 100. And just another announcement, we announced it in our last pillar of ultra running. We are currently writing a book right now, a Trail to 100 book that is going to give you all the tools that you need to finish your first 100-mile race, and we'll keep you updated on the progress there.
Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you all next time.
Hey guys, it's Melody here. Thank you so much for listening to Trail. It means so much to us. I'm really excited to tell you about my coaching business, where I help average Joes who are looking for a little bit more out of life do something big to find a little bit more purpose, direction, and meaning. Learn more on my Instagram at The Pine Tree Runner or on my website, melodybateman.biz. Links are in the show notes. I know what it's like to feel stagnant or like something's missing, or like you just want more out of life. I was in the same spot. Jacob and I had just gotten married, and we were both working 9-to-5 jobs, and we just were like, what do we do now? We just wanted something more, and we listened to David Goggins' book, and we decided to sign up for a 50-mile race. And Since then, we've done 50s, Jacob's done a couple hundreds, I've done 100, and running has changed our lives. I feel like I always have a goal to work towards. I feel accomplished and proud of myself. I feel like I have learned countless life lessons that have made me a better friend, a better wife, a better daughter, a better person. And I want to give back and help you do the same thing. I'm telling you, running can change your life. If you're ready to jump in and sign up for a race, whether it's 3 miles or 100 miles, I would be honored to help you cross the finish line. If you'd like to learn more or get in contact with me, find me on Instagram at the Pine Tree Runner or contact me through my website, melodybateman.biz. Links are in the show notes. You have so much potential and you are way stronger than you know. Let's find your strength because it's there just waiting to be tapped into.